Okay.
This is the very beginning of a legend, the very first step into what would be an amazing story to be witness to. This young lad here is Dylan Guptill, or what you probably know him better by, Guptill89. And while you may not know who he is, you probably know what he did.
Sonic the Hedgehog, one of the greatest and most attractive characters ever thought up. He can run at sound speed, take out enemies in a flash, and best of all, he's blue-colored and knows how to handle the females.
This list, this legendary video, is what brought our Guptill to stardom. It's certainly an interesting video, and it's bizarre even for its time, but damn was it the talk of the internet for years to come. And yeah, he got a lot of flack for it, but I believe this guy had some true inner genius that most people just didn't understand at the time.
And to start my whole journey, I would like to read out loud the first part of Guptill's magnum opus. Sonic the Hedgehog, one of the greatest and most attractive characters ever thought up. Well, where's his fucking list? It's been nearly 10 years and we haven't had an answer. There's a whole chunk of the cast we haven't touched. I can't let this stand. So much so that I have taken it upon myself to answer this decade-old question. After much conversation, consideration, and mental breakdowns, I have come up to a solution with the problem. Welcome to my Ode to Guptill, and what I believe to be the top 10 hottest male Sonic characters. Alright, so before we get started, let me say a couple things.
Alright, so this is just my list and it's not meant to be anything serious. I'm also a bit of an old head, so I'm just kind of pulling from memory here. I haven't played too many of the recent games, I'll get into that in a bit. But either way, we're just going to have fun with this and not take it too seriously. This is just what I find appealing, what I think other people find appealing, and we could talk about character design and personality and how they enrich the cast with their performance. Things of that nature. Nothing too grandiose, just something to have fun with. Alright, so before we get started, we also have to lay some rules down. All the Sonic characters may as well have no predetermined age, since it hardly matters and it's never relevant to any of the games or the plot, and especially since Sega has said you really shouldn't be taking these characters seriously at all, we're not going to worry too much about the nitty-gritty aspect of that. However, there are characters where it does matter. So characters like Tails, Charmy, and Ray, they're off the table. I also don't want to stray too far from what I have stored in memory. After all, while I am taking an account of other people's viewpoints as a whole, this is my list, and it's only going to make sense if I work with what I have. So I'm really sorry if I don't have your favorite character involved. I guarantee you this is going to be something that comes from the heart, and I really hope you enjoy it. Now this is going back to pretty early in my life, but I remember getting into Sonic around 2006. And then my first Sonic game was Chronicles. But later on I got a few more titles that only deepened my love for the series growing up. Sonic was my first hyperfixation, so much that it freaked out my friends and parents about how much I adored the games and its characters. With that said, where was I these past several years with no Sonic in it? Well, among several other things, it was actually the rude responses towards my behavior and work, similar to those towards Guptill's video, that made me scared of associating with the series and its fanbase. Thanks to Crossworlds, though, I feel much more comfortable and open to have silly fun with this cast of characters again. I'm back, baby! I love all these guys to pieces, and doing something silly like this seemed like it should be fun to do. So hell, I went ahead and did it.
So are you ready? Neither am I. Let's get into this shit.
And let's start off this list with our big, lovable Big. I'm glad to see Sonic's team still having a lot of fun with them, and actually allowing him to have a personality. It's so good to finally see this character get some respect in the past few years. I remember when Big was hated for being the most inoffensive character in the series alongside Cream. Introduced in Sonic Adventure, Big had the fishing minigames and while looking for his friend Froggy. Speaking of, Big is such a sweetie, definitely more on the cute side, but still deserves a spot, I feel. I'm glad they knew how to make a big, simple sweetheart with something meaningful to say. Wise and big may not be relative to each other, but simple in this context doesn't mean stupid. He knows the answer to something can be right in front of you, and it doesn't hurt to look. Life is meant to be taken one step at a time, and nobody should be pushing you too hard to get through it. Big is super loving and protective of his friends and doesn't want to bother with the trouble of having enemies. Just make more fishing buddies. And just look at him! Those have got to be some soft hugs. Okay, so Jet was initially higher on this list, but he doesn't deserve that, let's be real. Let's also be real that there are a lot of people who are into jerks like Jet. Granted, his main driving force is I can fix him, but hey, there's an audience for that. But to give credit where credit is due, Jet does the asshole rival thing pretty well and brings out in a lot of characters he challenges, especially Sonic. It's always great to see Jet on screen because he always has fun interactions with the rest of the cast. And it's always great when the cast puts his self-entitled ass in its place. I think his design also helps. He was the first avian since Bean and reintroduced the concept of bird characters in the Sonic world along with Wave and Storm. He's a very pleasant shade of green and composed of nice, sharp angles thanks to his face and feathers that give him a very impactful look. That alone I think is enough to place him a step above Big for the spot of number 9. Taking a spot above his leader, we got another big bruiser named Storm. Storm is like the total opposite of Big in everything but size and sweetness. Storm is brash, sure, but he knows when to tone down his behavior around the right people. That level of self-control for his type is certainly worth noting, and he's also super faithful to his friends. We also gotta talk about his look. I love his sunken-in eyes and his jagged mouth. Combined with his color scheme, it kinda makes him look like a shark, and it really does work for him. Storm might not understand what's going on, but he'll have your back no matter what happens. Up next, we have our ace detective, Vector the Crocodile. Now, I love crocs, and Vector is no exception. I remember finding out about him and loving him instantly. He's another big guy with a big heart, but unlike the last three, he's just oozing with charisma with his kinda mob boss sort of attitude and lexicon. I adore his DJ look with the chain and the headphones. Not the first thing you expect a detective to wear, but it really suits his design. He's another one with a really good shape language to make him visually appealing and has a lot of fun interactions with the cast when he can have them, making him a riot when he's on screen. He can be kinda greedy, but that doesn't get in the way for how much he cares about his buddies, or as he likes to call them, the boys. Hell, he's actively trying to be the best man he could be so he could be the apple of Vanilla's eye. Sure, it's a slow process, but he's trying his best, and that's what matters. Give it up for Vector for being the boss with the sauce. Okay, I'll admit, I didn't know how to end this segment. Moving on! Number 6 is in the sights of Sonic's most destructive ally, E123 Omega. A robot that was meant to be Eggman's absolute ultimate creation, Omega has a major grudge against his creator for locking him away in a chamber to protect a Shadow clone. This made him have a love for destruction and tends to go off the deep ends when it comes to, well, just about anything. Speaking of Shadow, and by extent Rouge, it's just so cute how he talks so highly about the two since he does consider them to be his closest friends. He's also not always absurdly violent for no reason. He's nicer to those he deems innocent and does respect other members of the cast in his own Omega way. Hell, he even takes a couple shots at Sonic's pride a few times just to tick him off, and sassiness always lands you some points. And looping back to being the superior design, Omega has a great one. He keeps the uniform Eggman colors and utilizes the scheme for a nice dark Doombringer sort of vibe. Not to mention his broad shoulders and big upper body definitely draw attention to him, with his angry looking eyes being the point that grabs you. It's that extreme build and personality that secures Omega the rank of number 6. He might not be happy with that, but we still got the other half of the list to go. I was held at gunpoint to have Knuckles rank higher on this list, and rest assured I was definitely going to add him here and make sure he did well. Now, Knuckles was a character that kind of struck a chord with me when I was a kid. I was never into the tough talking with fists kind of guys until Knuckles showed up. I always thought that type was kind of boring or annoying, but Knuckles is anything but that. And thanks to him, I was introduced to a whole slew of characters that I grew to love. But back to Knuckles. Where do I start? Sonic's first and closest rival? He's the guy that made the duo a trio. Knuckles isn't just bronze for brains, though. He does have a strong sense of duty and camaraderie protecting the Master Emerald and his friends. And like Storm, he doesn't need to understand what's going on to spring into action when he has to. For being a toughie, his design is really balanced. His quills hang down like dreads, and his spike gloves make him look hard and gentle. It's hard to put into words, but I think you could get what I mean when you look at him. The Guardian of the Master Emerald is certainly worthy of being at the top half of the list at number 5. Number 4's been found out by our sleek ninja, Espio. I thought it was a rhino when I saw him as a kid, didn't notice the tail. I was actually shocked to find out that he was one of the older Sonic characters, appearing along with Vector and Charmy back in Knuckles Chaotix. Something about his look just seems so evolved. He doesn't really look as old as he is. Hey, when it comes to looks, that's certainly a point in your favor, ain't it? But before we get into that, Espio is the cool, disciplined ninja who always keeps it together no matter how dire the situation may be. But he's also, like, a total dork.
Why does Sonic get the cool evil robot clone? Aren't I cool and powerful enough to warrant one? Perhaps if I defeat him, I'll prove myself.
And that makes him a really appealing character to me, actually. I get really bored or even annoyed with characters that are so cool that they refuse to have any flaws. Espio actually feels like he's a real person on this front. He feels like somebody you'd actually know who would act like this. Now back to the design. I love the shape of his head because he always looks serious, but then you have bits of him that look cute, like the heart on his chest. Also purple? The best color ever? Hell yeah! I think this character, his looks, and his history lands him a secure spot at number 4.
Alright, so if you made it this far into the video, are you okay? But thank you for sticking around this long. I didn't think anyone else would. This was just a fun little project to one big funny joke that friends and I thought were funny, but I wanted to put some effort into it because I thought it would be fun to do. And it is. And if you don't think this is a joke, I really don't blame you. But I do want to address the elephant in the room. Am I a furry? Well, I mean, I guess. I don't know. I just say that because I really just like the costumes. I'm a costume freak and I love animals, so they just kind of go hand in hand with each other. But that does bring into something I wanted to discuss before we move on with the list. And that is, Sonic is the king of furries!
Now I know what a lot of you guys are thinking when I say that. That doesn't make sense. Furries have been around since the 1980s, and Sonic didn't get big until he came out back in 1991. How could he have pioneered the furry movement when he was 10 years after it? Hear me out when I say this. Yes, furries have existed longer than Sonic has, but furries have always been a bit of an underground fandom during that period. Their meetups were discreet, and people didn't really talk about them, and if they did, it wasn't in a positive light. Until Sonic came around. And when you think about it, Mickey Mouse and Bugs Bunny have been around long before he has, but who started the trend of making all of these animal OCs? Sonic has. And yeah, Pokemon may have existed before then too, but you can't really have a conversation with the Pokemon, can you? The Sonic characters fit that Anthro glove perfectly, and people make their Anthro characters usually modeled after Sonic. Before there was Lycan, before there was Crystal, there was Sonic. All of these characters before him walked so Sonic could run, and Sonic happens to be really good at running. And if he didn't catch them before, he certainly caught them after with how big he exploded, so yeah, Sonic has had a very big hand in furry culture. Arguably, he molded furry culture after his success. But with all that said, let's get back to our scheduled video. So here we are, the top 3. The stakes are much higher now. Not anybody can be placed here. It took a lot of discussion and thought to make sure these places held their worth on this list. So third has to be really strong, but not too strong. Still, they gotta at least make a statement. Who else can be the entryway into the cream of the crop amongst the cast? Number 3 is Sonic the Hedgehog. Now, I know what you're thinking. How the hell can you crown him king and then hand him bronze? Didn't you just say this guy had a major hand in molding furry culture of today? Yes, I did, but please, hear me out on this. Sonic has a great personality and a lot of traits that are very appealing, and trust me, I mean this, and I'll get into why. This is the pioneer of not only modern day furries, but the you do you cool dude attitude as a whole during the 90s. And don't get that fact wrong in any way, Sonic is no pushover, and he'll gladly tell you that because the only thing that runs as fast as his feet is his mouth. He's gaming's first counterculture. He was made to piss off Nintendo executives and won! And I will bury my face into my hands when I admit to you, without a doubt in my heart, that yes, Sonic is my type. And therefore, he should be first, right? Well... You see, Sonic's character as a whole was meant to be an answer to Nintendo's Mario, yeah? Everything about him works because everything is so interlinked with each other, design included in this equation. And why do I bring this up? Well, look at these for me, will ya? These are some human designs for Sonic. Look pretty cool, huh? I think so too. But as great as these pieces are, do you feel like there's something missing? Something that's supposed to be there but isn't, and you can't really place a finger on it? That's because Sonic only works if he's a hedgehog. That's the secret to the formula. His whole personality flows through him being a cute, spiky animal critter. He was meant to overthrow a human in and out of context. Taking that away from him is taking away half of his character, and the other half doesn't know what to do with itself without it. And why is this an issue? I'm making a list of Sonic characters. Why is this a problem now? Well, see, if you go online and you look up a human version of any other Sonic character, I guarantee you they won't be as far-fetched or jarring. But with Sonic...
Yeah, I can't do it. I'm just not that big of a furry. Sonic the Hedgehog and all of his friends will just be big, colorful, stuffed animals to me. I don't think I can ever see the characters in that light.
What I'm trying to say is, you pretty much have to be a furry to be into the king of furries himself. And hell, even if he introduced them to the concept, I know not all furries like Sonic that way. It's all a matter of taste. I'm fully aware what type of power Sonic holds, but he's just for a specific audience. That's all. Yes, all of these characters are cartoon animal people, but like mentioned before, they could be humans and still work perfectly fine. You just can't do that with Sonic. He's not Sonic without the Hedgehog. And because of that, I think 3 is an appropriate spot for him. This segment was going to be a lot longer because there's so much I can say on Sonic's design, how I felt about it throughout the years, how I feel about it now, but I still have 2 more characters to discuss. So to wrap this segment up, I award Sonic with being in the top 3 on this list, taking the place of 3rd. Oh, also, this is the closest we'll get to an official human Sonic design. If this is the closest we got, then I want to stay the furthest away as possible. Next! And number 2, we have Zavok, the warlord leader of the Deadly Six. Okay, you might be mad that I gave Sonic third, you might be even angrier that Zavok was placed above him, but I do have a reason for doing this, and here's why. So I explained that Sonic's attitude and design are great, but are for a very focused audience. Zavok also has these qualities, but is more applicable to a much bigger group. A lot of people out there love their big bar of demon monsters. His threats cut deep, but he says them in the most cunning, dignified manner that feel like a finger going down your spine. Also, like Patrick Seitz. I mean, come on.
A bold challenge. I shall relish humbling you upon the race course.
And if we want to talk about design, words don't describe how good Zavok looks. The striking red along with the near black gray add such a nice, deep contrast. The underjaw, the horns, the big upper body and claws, hell, even the tail. All of these qualities proudly display what kind of monster he is when he's on the scene. Zavok demands your attention, and he will receive it. And some of you might be thinking, wait, he's a newer character. Why is he on this list? Well, I think he's a welcome change to the Sonic world, and adds more depth on what Sonic characters could potentially be. He's different, sure, but still very believable and works within the rules of Sonic character design.
And, well, you know, it's my list, so eat it.
But Zavok's inclusion in the series alone is just as bold as his personality and design, so it's only fair that I award him with second place on this list.
There were a lot of good characters to choose from. And what kind of top 10 list would it be if we didn't have some honorable mentions?
Silver. You know, he was actually the original top 10 on this list, but I think Big's inner wisdom and overall maturity kind of beats him out. Don't get me wrong, Silver's adorable, he's actually my favorite character, but he's definitely a cutie more than a hottie, if anything, in Guptill's words when describing Amy. So, an honorable mention he will be. Metal Sonic. You know, it felt really weird putting Omega instead of him when it came to the robot representation, but I really think Omega has more going for him, and don't get me wrong, I love Metal Sonic to pieces, he's one of my favorite classic characters, but Omega beat him out, so another honorable mention we have here. Fang, Bark, Mighty, they're great characters, but they just couldn't compete with the list. Eggman, look, I really wanted to include a funny reason to put Eggman in this list, but I just couldn't think of one. The whole joke of, oh, number 3 is actually going to be Eggman when it isn't. I did my best. Listen, if you like obscenely tall scientists, you do you, and good for you. I'm happy for you, I really am. Yahoo! My underground! My underground! Even above the mushroom would be found! My underground! Well, here it is. Number 1. There's a lot of great characters in this series. A lot of characters that have stuck with me throughout my entire life. And they probably stuck with you too. So you know picking number 1 is especially challenging. It can't just be anybody. It has to be someone very special. And with how many characters in this cast of so many, it really could be anybody. Who is capable of catching the number 1 spot as Shadow? Okay, so the irony gloves kinda come off with this one. While this was back when I thought a dragon was going to jump out of a toilet and eat me, I did have a crush on Shadow when I was a little kid. I liked the whole dark aesthetic he had and his overall demeanor. Was I at that age where I thought edgy and gritty were cool? Sure, and a lot of kids my age did, but I won't spill my guts out, but I'm coming to find a lot of us, had it pretty rough growing up. My main hobby was art and video games, and while my classmates liked my drawings, I was always drawing alone. There was no online gaming for me, and I can count on one hand how many play dates I had with my friends back then. so I was pretty lonely as a kid. So I turn 13, I get a DeviantArt account, yep, I'm that old, and I start looking at Sonic art. And a lot of the people that I met on there were Sonic fans, who also really liked Shadow, and who also happened to be girls like me. And a lot of us were bullied, often, because of our interests and our mannerisms. And you know, that's kinda bound to happen when you're a young kid. But the point is that Shadow made us comfortable in what we were doing. We weren't doing anything wrong. Sure, it was maybe inappropriate for how we acted online, but who acted perfectly when they were a kid? Anywhere. I mean, come on. But going into why Shadow is so great, man, I love how edgy he is. He's so brutish and short-tempered, but he's also down to earth and can have a real conversation to people that he feels like having one with. He has these goofy gloves, these power inhibitor cuffs, and his over-designed jet shoes. His complete obsession to act and look like a total badass during that era, and even now, still makes me giggle every now and then. I like how his quills are shaped, I love the red streaks in them, I love the little patch of fur on his chest to remind everyone that he's still a fuzzy little critter under all that edge. He is the black and red color scheme done right. He's like the father of black and red OCs, and I love him for it. And let's be real, Shadow was handsome back then, and he's handsome to me now. We love you, Shadow, and I'm glad to see that hasn't changed. So there you have it, my top 10 hottest male Sonic characters. I hope you enjoyed watching this as much as I enjoyed making it. I was apprehensive of making this list because of what kind of reaction it would get, but thankfully my friends encouraged me to keep going with it, and you know what, I'm really glad that I did. This is my first major video project, and while it's not the best, I'm definitely glad that I managed to do something as big as this. I'm hoping to do more in the future, and I'm hoping to have your support later on when I do that, because I'm pretty new to this. I also have a 9-to-5 and several other responsibilities that I need to get a hold of. This part is pretty unscripted, by the way, so I apologize for my stutters, I apologize for my dyslexia. I'm gonna do my best here, but I just want this part to really come from the heart. Speaking of, I have a VGen open and a Patreon, so if you want to see more of my artwork, I'm going to go ahead and link all those below in the description, as well as my Blue Sky account where I mainly post my work, so definitely share those and follow if you're interested. I appreciate any and all help right now, especially since I'm kind of tight on bills due to circumstances. But before I get into that, I also just kind of want to talk about Guptill89's video, what inspired this whole thing. I always thought it was funny. Yeah, maybe I pointed and laughed at it when I was younger, but I've come to realize that, as I stated earlier, you do a lot of stupid shit as a kid, you know? I've said a lot of dumb things, I've had a lot of dumb opinions. I was never a perfect person, and I never will, but I'll always strive to be a better person. How I always thought of it is that if you sit back and you just cringe at who you used to be for so long without really doing anything about it, you don't grow that way. Don't be upset that it used to be bad. Smile that you became better. That's how I like to think of it. My DeviantArt is still there. I don't post on it anymore. I mean, I haven't posted on there in years, since I was 13 years old. And I've said a lot of dumb shit on there, but I don't let it bother me, because that's just not who I am anymore. And Guptill, you know, he's not the guy that made the top 10 hottest Sonic women. He's changed. And it's kind of sad because a lot of bullying made that happen, but I like to think that he matured, and I actually know that he matured and became a great content creator because he's still at it. He's still making videos. And Guptill, on the off chance that you see this, man, you're an inspiration. I would have never thought of making this had I not watched your work and thought, you know what? No, it's okay to just go ahead and do your own thing. And don't let anyone stop you. You should feel free to create whatever it is that you want. Creativity is an expression of freedom. Never let anyone take that away from you. So again, my VGen, my Patreon, and my Blue Sky are all down below. Please give those a look. I'd really appreciate it. And I hope to see you next time. Take care, everybody.